الله أكبر.
حي على الصلاة.
الله أكبر.
I rise giving the highest of praise to the great God of the universe, Allah, and the highest of honors to his holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali, Islam. I extend those honors to the Moorish American flag, the red flag with the green five-pointed star in the center, the 5 points representing love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, Islam. I'd also like to acknowledge the American flag, also known as the Mercantile Trade Banner, Stars and Stripes, which reminds us that, is a constant reminder that the Europeans owe the Moors in compound interest, Islam. I'd like to extend honors to the harbinger, the forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who did warn and stir up the nations. I'd like to send honors to you, the Moors, at Moorish Science Temple of America, subordinate temple number 19. All of the sheikh staff and all of the admin staff and all of the members in the groves. And also the vanguards who keep the peace, Islam. I tell you what, the Prophet in his divine constitution and bylaws says that all members are to learn to open up their meetings with love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and I'm paraphrasing here. You know, this being my first time opening up at the rostrum, I tell you what, it's one of those experiences where you're outside, you're outside of your body, but you kind of watching yourself doing something.
Wow.
And it's like the great God Allah is guiding. I can feel Allah guiding this movement, Islam. This is the great meeting. The great meeting is on. There are a lot of meetings out there, a lot of different organizations holding different meetings. We have meetings at work, meetings of other civic organizations, meetings of other different causes, drives, government meetings. But this is the great meeting. This is the great meeting because this is our meeting that was brought to us by our holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali.
Wow.
This is the great meeting because in this meeting we are to teach those things which make our members better citizens, Islam. This is the great meeting because this is all about the upliftment of fallen humanity. This is the great meeting because we teach our people that their nationality and know that they're a part and parcel of this said government, Islam. With that, I would like to open up with a message from the Prophet. Prophet Jew Ali speaks to the nations. And I received orders from the Grand Sheikh, and the Grand Sheikh would like for us to encourage our brothers and sisters that are out in the world to join this movement. So with that, I will open up with Prophet Jew Ali speaks to the nations. If you have race pride and love your race, join the Moorish Science Temple of America and become a part of this divine movement. Then you will have the power to redeem your race because you will know who you are and your forefathers were. Because where there is unity, there is strength. Together we stand, divided we fall. Come, good people, because I, the prophet, sent to redeem this nation from mental slavery which you have now, need every one of you who think that your condition can be better. This is a field open to strong men and women to uplift the nation and take your place in the affairs of men. If the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? It is your problem. The Negro problem is being solved only as it can, and that is by the Moorish National Divine Movement. If you have a nation, you must have a free national name in order to be recognized by this nation as an American citizen. This is what was meant when it said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things would be added unto you, by the prophet, Islam. So the prophet opens up with talking about race pride. The prophet had given us the degree of the Asiatic. And we know that we are of the Asiatic race. And we also know that our nationality is Moorish American. Now the prophet says if you love your race and have race pride, then join the Moorish Science Temple of America. So why are we to join this movement, and why are we to teach others to join this movement? Well, we know that we are to uplift fallen humanity. We know we are to teach our brothers and sisters their nationality. But the prophet goes in a little further. He says, you will have power. When you join this movement, when we join this movement, we have power. So right now, I have power. The sisters have power. The brothers in this movement have power. What do we have the power to do? To redeem our race. Because we're learning who we are. The prophet began to uplifting the Moorish Americans by doing what?
Teaching them to be themselves.
Teaching them to be themselves. And your forefathers were. The prophet teaches that you are who your forefathers were without a doubt or a contradiction. So you are them. A lot of times we like to speak of our ancient foremothers and forefathers like it's a third person, or like it's somebody else, or if it's just someone that we're disconnected from other than having a name in the bloodline. But the prophet tells us that we are them. So what does that mean to me? That means to me that we were walking with the prophet back in the 19 teens and the 1920s.
Islam.
That tells me that we were walking with the Moors in Spain back in the 1600s, from 711 AD on forward to 1492 and beyond. That tells me that we were walking with our brother Prophet Muhammad.
Islam.
That tells me we were walking with our brother Yeshua or Jesus 2,000 years ago. That's what that tells me. That tells me that we were walking with all of the prophets. That means we were walking with Ruth, the Moabites. We were walking with all of these great men and women who are our ancestors. The prophet united us under this movement. All of the Asiatics of the Americas are to be united under this movement. This national divine movement. See, right now we have brothers and sisters still stuck in mental slavery or mental servitude. Being stuck in mental slavery and mental servitude means that even though you're not being forced to serve from a physical perspective, you're still in your mind being forced to serve from a mental perspective. Being in mental slavery means being under the denationalized state of Negro, black, and colored. Being in mental slavery means that we still have to be redeemed. You know, when slavery was being talked about, you know, and when slavery was happening, chattel slavery, we were looked at as being property. There's a case from North Carolina back in 1839 where a judge, he didn't want to try a case, but he had to, because he said if he didn't try this case, then he would be committing a crime. But this was a case where a slaveholder shot a slave in the back. And because this Asiatic was in the status of a Negro, black, or color, this slaveholder who was leasing this person at the time was able to be acquitted, because all he did was damage property. All he did was damage something like this, you know, this chair. If I damage this chair, you know, that would be considered a civil wrong or a tort. So I would have to compensate financially to repair that inanimate object. That was the extent of a slave's rights, but that wasn't even the slave's rights, that was the owner's rights. A slave could not assert any rights. So being that we're still in mental slavery, what rights are you able to assert? What rights are we able to assert as Negroes, blacks, and colors? Yeah, we have civil rights, but what about the rights of a human being? The prophet says, if the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? It is your problem. The Negro problem. The black problem. The colored problem. Even the African American problem. Because we know that African American is a socio-political construct. We are to teach others and convince others to join us, because it takes a nation. There's strength in numbers. The prophet says, if the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? The prophet was soliciting help. We're supposed to go get our other brothers and sisters because we need help.
That's right.
And this passes my ears before it gets to you. A lot of times I'm just going out there just teaching, talking and talking, but not recruiting. The job of a missionary in saving is part of it is to recruit. Anybody ever talk to the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses? A lot of times they're recruiting. And they just had a convention in Atlanta where they had 50,000 people in the stadium. So let's not forget, we are supposed to be out here recruiting for the prophet and for the great God Allah. The prophet in the when he filed in Cook County, he says to anoint, appoint, and consecrate missionaries of the prophet and to establish the faith of Muhammad here in America. So that is what we are to be doing. And this is a religious affidavit which was filed. I want to draw from a couple of things, and then I will yield the floor to our next speaker. It's a little manuscript from a book entitled Morocco as It Is by Stephen Bonsall Jr., written in 1893. And the author, in traveling to Morocco, recorded some things of his travels, and I actually got this from watching a video of Seer the Duke of Tears. So I just want to give some credit where it's due. So I didn't just find this just arbitrarily. And it reads, and this is from chapter 15, it reads, the Khalifa went on to narrate, and he's saying he's in Morocco, all right? The Khalifa went on to narrate how 60 years before the village had been taken under American protection for some reason by the consul of that day, and that it had remained under American protection ever since. This practice was but another abuse of the protege system, but it still certainly had its good usages. The men of this village, the name of which I forget, were faithful and efficient servants of the legation and of Americans, because they could look forward with equanimity to the frequent changes that the new administrations bring about in our consular corps. And corps, C-O-R-P-S. The English legation, so this is English and, you know, American representatives right now that are, you know, these are the parties being spoken of. The English legation also is guilty of a similar irregularity. They protect the village of Swani, which is much nearer Tangier. So if you look those up right now, those are cities in Morocco. The Swani men proved very faithful in guarding Sir John Hay some 40 years ago when a body of Ibdawa horsemen, and that's a tribe of Ibdawa. Now, when I researched Ibdawa, Iowa came up. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm just giving it to you how I got it. A body of Ibdawa horsemen set upon him and would probably have done him bodily injury because a horse of his breeding had proved superior in a race on the beach to their champion. Ever since this episode, the Swani men have been protected by the English consulate, and the servants and grooms of the legation and of the attachés are always recruited from this village. The Swani men and the Moorish Americans. Now this is from 1893. So the prophet, you know, he brought something that was new to us. But the world knew who we were. The world knows who we are. That's why we are to teach our people who we are. The Swani men and the Moorish Americans, I regret to say, get along very badly with one another. So we weren't getting along with our brothers over in Morocco. And this is in the late mid-late 1800s. They are continually at strife and fighting as to whether England or America is the most powerful nation of the earth. When some 4 years ago the Queen presented the Sultan with a huge elephant, the Swani men were delighted, and the American villagers proportionately depressed. However, they soon learned that the Sultan of America was about to send the Sultan Muley Hassan an animal so large that the elephant would seem, in comparison to him, but as an insignificant insect. So, what were we bickering over at the time? We're bickering over who had the fastest horse. We're bickering over who got the best gifts. Who had, you know, that didn't sound a lot like how we are today sometimes. Who has the fastest car? Brothers fighting over a car race. Who has the biggest this or the biggest that? Material things. And Moorish Americans were bickering and fighting over the same thing. But what did the prophet do? The prophet brought us something that would unite us. The prophet brought us something that we can go show to our brothers and sisters and say, look, you are not who they say you are. Your origin does not start with the close of the Civil War or in Virginia in 1619 or somewhere on a slave ship. We have a rich history of Asiatic activities. Owning gold and land and having governments and sultanates and caliphates all over the world, even here in America. So who are these Moorish Americans then? The prophet in Acts 6 tells us who these Moorish Americans are. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. What else does he tell us? Well, if you look at chapter 47 in our Holy Quran, the prophet tells us, instruction 6, the Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa, They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa. Think about that. Their dominion and inhabitation. So what is that? Dominion and inhabitation. What do they say? A man's home is his castle, or female women as well. But our home and our castle extended from northeast and southwest Africa across Great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. Islam. Give the highest of honors to the Holy Prophet Drew Ali for bestowing upon us the truth and the highest principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة.
Allah